Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of Sikkim365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Grayson Grundhafer is Sikkim365.com's recruiting analyst. He and Craig Smoak, they do a Bearcast every week on Tuesdays. It's an hour plus of everything you'd want Baylor. He joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. So, Grayson, at least the Big 12 appears to be trying to put or formulate maybe a plan. Yes, that's nice to know. And then there was the story today about Brigham Young. If you were to expand, if you were in charge of the Big 12, would you go 2 or 4? And who would your first 2 be?
Yeah, so I think personally, I would probably go with the 2 route. And the reason for that is just because I think the value that you get with those 2 schools is very good. And I have 2 schools in mind that I think enhance the Big 12's footprint, but also I think it enhances the quality on the field. So when you talk about some schools that I think would be very interesting, BYU is definitely one of those schools. I think that they would enhance that footprint out west to give you some connections out there. BYU, very successful program as well. The other program that I have a lot of interest in, and I think it makes sense geographically to link in West Virginia a little bit, make this school kind of their rival in the Big 12. And also I think it just enhances the quality of the conference, is Cincinnati. They have a really good coach in Luke Fickell. They have a really good program that just continues to be on the rise. So those 2 markets really intrigue me significantly. But outside of that, once you get from those 2 and you start looking kind of broader than that, UCF makes some sense. So I get that if you want to get up to 12 schools, they make some sense for number 11. But it's that other school that I just really struggle with. Who do you add? Because for me, I don't think that any of the schools in Texas are a wise decision for the Big 12, because that just kind of waters down the talent pool between Texas Tech, Baylor, and TCU, of course. And even though they'd be the most natural fit, I just don't think it's a smart decision for the Big 12. So I would go BYU and Cincinnati, with UCF kind of being that one school that I definitely have interest in, but I just don't think they make it this time around if the Big 12 were to expand a little bit.
Yeah, see, I disagree with you a little bit. I would put Cincinnati third, because UCF is just a massive school. I'd want, if I'm trying to expand, and like TV markets are a muddied thing and all of that right now and streaming, I would just want the biggest alumni base. That's what I would try to run.
Well, in the story earlier this week that we had, where they were going to put in like $300 million into facilities. Now, that doesn't always mean that means you get to go to the next level, but that's a good thing, because I think they've tasted this success and they're kind of thirsty right now. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, and Paul, I think you're on the right track. I think you have to like both schools for different reasons. Obviously, UCF was very, very, they had so much momentum under Scott Frost, and Josh Heupel did a nice job there. But I just think that at the end of the day, I really like the Cincinnati culture. But to be honest, for those 2, I think they're both very replaceable. I understand the reasoning for both of them. And if I were to add, get up to 12 schools, personally, I think I would probably go UCF and USF. I just think it makes sense to add that Florida pipeline to the conference.
Grayson, any further idea on how much this has been a conversation amongst recruits that potentially are considering schools like Baylor or, obviously Oklahoma and Texas? I mean, have you got any sense of what this has done to recruiting over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with recruits about this. And to be honest, the ones that seem the most, I don't even want to say nervous or scared. That's not the right word, but it's basically they're intrigued by what's going to happen. They're kind of focusing in on that. And I know multiple 2023 recruits have talked about that, which those guys are juniors. They won't be signing in December. They'll be next December. But those are the guys that I'm really kind of talking to the most about it, because 2022 kids, they just love Baylor, and Baylor's been their school. Obviously, it's late in their recruitment. It's just a different part in their life that they're currently at. And I think that for 2022 kids, unless something crazy comes out, like Baylor officially is going to be American, or Baylor is officially not a Power 5 school, if that were to come out, that would be an issue. But at this time, I just don't think it's going to affect that class. It will affect the other classes, 2023, 2024. And a lot of those conversations are just, where's Baylor going to end up? Do you want to play out in the West Coast when you're from Texas? Do you want to, stay in Texas? Is the American more appealing? And for most kids that I talk to, I would say that they would rather the Big 12 stay together, first of all. And second of all, they just want Baylor to stay Power 5 because that's obviously a goal for many, many recruits. It's just a separating factor for programs like Baylor when you go up against a school like Houston or SMU. And so that's kind of where things are at right now.
But you don't think in any way, shape, or form, maybe there's somewhat at some point, because there's a long way between now and December and signing day or February, you don't see today's current landscape or the environment affecting what they have locked in for what appears to be December?
So I would say I haven't heard anything that is concrete, that is like, if this happens, I'm leaving. But I will say I get what you're talking about, because there have been 22s that are a little bit nervous or skeptical about what's going to happen to Baylor. And like I mentioned, if something concrete comes out like, hey, Baylor's going to the American, yes, that would be an issue for the 2022 class for sure. But if they go to the Pac-12, I would say the Pac-12 is kind of, it's like American, then Pac-12, then ACC, then obviously any other conference. But I think recruits would rather, if Baylor were to join a Power 5 conference, I get the feeling that most recruits would rather it be the ACC versus the Pac-12, just based off conversation.
Grayson Grundhafer with us, SicEm365.com recruiting analyst every Friday at 3:45. Grayson, I think Zach Pyron, is he the quarterback commit from Alabama? Has he already played in a game or two? I saw some notes, kind of some moments on Twitter. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's played in scrimmages, and then they have their first official game, I believe, tonight. I know he had a big touchdown run. The schools and the schedules go off. They're very different when you're in Alabama versus Texas, but I believe his first game is tonight. And then I know they had a big scrimmage last weekend. He broke off a 75-yard touchdown run. Obviously a very, very good player, and is going to add some really quality depth to their quarterback room. And it wouldn't shock me if he really contended for possibly starting in the near future. I don't know about year one, but I do think he's going to be a very, very good player. And yeah, his season's kicking off. I know most of the Texas kids are kicking off this weekend, but Jordan Neighbors, actually the star wide receiver out of Rockwall Heath, he had a great game last weekend, caught a couple touchdown passes from Josh Hoover, who's a really, really good quarterback recruit there. They have Jay Fair as well, another really good 2022 wide receiver, a 4-star guy. So that offense is humming, and Jordan Neighbors appears to be a massive part of this year, which is really intriguing.
We got to go. Thanks for your time, but I want you to say one thing about Gary Bohannon winning that quarterback battle. For now, we don't know from week to week, but at least he's the first one the first week. In the end, what do you think was the difference?
He went out and earned it, and this was a battle. We've talked about it ad nauseum so many times, and he just went out and really proved that he's going to get this offense from point A to point B the best. And I think that's really the key part of this, is that he's going to get you first downs. He's going to move the chains. He's going to be methodical, and his legs are going to allow you to keep your defense on the sideline, ride just a great defense, and then also have that explosive playability with him in the run game and also the pass game. I just think his maturity, his ability to recognize, hey, I need to make these improvements and actually go out and do it, was the difference at the end of the day. So Gary is QB1 for the first game, and I think he's going to do a really nice job. He definitely opens up some areas of that offense that could be really intriguing for Jeff Grimes and Sean Bell.
Thank you. Grayson Grundhafer, Fridays at 3:45. He has so many articles up, that recruiting stories about players, prospects, all of that, constantly in the SicEm.com premium section online. When we come back, Andy Staples, the athletic